Matt Rogers at 7-3 playing Bravo Stars. He's going to be playing against James Silver playing Prism. And if you've been following Flesh and Blood Classic Constructed in the last few months,
oh yeah,
this is the matchup.
Oh, 100%. This is the matchup, especially after Viscerai got a pretty big knock in the most recent banned and suspended announcement. And so I think these are some of the favorite heroes in the game right now, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt Rogers, absolutely legendary Flesh and Blood player, possibly one of the best in the world. And I don't think that's very debatable, to be honest.
No, absolutely not. And nice little handshake before the match there. I think they know. They know, like, one of us is making it out of here alive in the tournament. The next one is, hey, we're trying to finish as high as possible. Love that new Dragon Shield shirt. The pro team from Matt over here. Love seeing them getting involved in Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, recently announced yesterday. That was very, very cool, I think.
Speaking of very cool, this is pretty cool. I got these 3 cards for you. I picked them up at Target. They were on sale. They're real nice, and this activates a Starvo.
Yep, Starvo activation, and here we have a Break Ground, a card that, you know what, we've been seeing all Pro Tour. We will, continue to see all Pro Tour as long as Starvo is in the mix, and I think Starvo will, continue to be in the mix here. That's just a good old 8 Break Ground, go again and dominate. So not too bad of a start, right? Especially on first turn, you want to push a little bit of damage, not give your opponent that mulligan, but dominate first turn, pretty good way to push that damage.
Yeah, this is like one of the spots where it's interesting to see how aggressive and how aggressive their attacks are in turn 1 against Prism, because you don't want to get in a situation where you attack and then in turn they play an aura and then they get to start their 100%. Turn with an aura, and that could be bad. Cards like Genesis come to mind, but it looks like this is not something that Matt has to worry about this turn. But the go again on the activation from Starvo is really big here. You see he's going to push a ton of damage, and he's going to be able to follow this up with Winter's Wail and possibly even get a Frostbite in over on the silver side of the board.
Not insignificant. Against Prism, you really want to keep up this tempo against their onslaught of auras. You really can't let the auras overwhelm you. We've seen it earlier this Pro Tour. Like, it could just get very, very overwhelming just coming up against a massive army of auras. And I think that's one of the things that obviously Matt needs to keep in mind.
Yeah, it looks like there's no auras to be found just yet. James has just he's kind of Herald flooded. There's one over here. A card that I definitely want to point out here when we're looking at the equipment, we always try to start the games off with this. There is a Time Skippers up on Matt Rogers' side of the board. That's going to be an important one in this matchup, because the way Phantasm works is even if your card has Go Again, if you attack an aura and it pops, Go Again does not resolve. So that's the end of your turn. The combat chain will close. So this is something that Matt's going to have to be wary of in the future if some of those auras do come down. We'll talk about that more if that comes up.
100%. And here we have, once again, another Break Ground. Like I said, we're going to be seeing a lot of this card. So this is a 9 Break Ground. Matt, at the start of his turn, did do his Starvo activation. So this does have, the Starvo platter, I guess.
Platter, I like
the
that.
Starvo
actually.
platter. Plus
a little bit of everything,
dominate,
right?
Go again, exactly.
Yeah.
And so here we go.
It's got the whole buffet.
I absolutely love, by the way, I want to say this, I love the art on Starvo, because I imagine that's what he's doing when he does the activation. He's just like, here you go. And so
he'd definitely be a big-time showman.
Yep, exactly. And with the Dominate, it doesn't really give James a ton of options in regards to blocking. Prism does run some defense reactions here and there, but it looks like he's just going to take it on the chin.
Yeah, and this is kind of damage that you're more willing to take, right? This is generic damage. It's just Break Ground attacking for 9. 9 is a lot, but it doesn't have any on-hit effects. It doesn't have any crush effects. You're not discarding cards.
100%.
You're not taking away Go Again, which is, we could see maybe a crush card with that ability as the game goes on if that's in Matt Rogers' list somewhere. Lots of options there that are good against Prism in particular from the Starvo side.
Yeah, and speaking of on-hit effects, we have this Winter's Wail coming in, threatening a Frostbite token. And you see James here, more considering blocking this, to prevent that on-hit effect. And, as such, he's kind of in the tank here a little bit.
James definitely taking a lot of damage here early in this game. He's already down to 25.
25, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty low, but, Prism, like you said, they've got some defensive reactions. The problem here is, we don't know how constructed James's deck is, how he has constructed it for this matchup. Maybe he is going for the Herald spam and just trying to attack a ton.
Yeah.
But generally, the rule of thumb from the Prism side is they've been trying to establish big board states with tons of auras on play, and we just haven't really seen that yet.
Yeah, so. I mean, honestly, anyone who knows me knows I love aggro. So I like the Herald spam.
Don't we all?
Yes, exactly. So yeah, it looks like James is just gonna eat some more damage and take a Frostbite token. as Matt there, you got to be wondering, like, okay, what does he have in his hand, that made him take this damage? Is it just a bunch of, no blocks?
Yeah, is that a double Genesis pitch to attack with
That
a
is
Herald?
a double Genesis pitch. So, turns out, might not have had a lot to block with to begin with.
Yeah, it looks like we're just going to try to race here from James' side of the board.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting racing when you're at half health versus your opponent. But I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do in these kind of situations, Matt here, he's got to be thinking like, I mean, do I want to keep this massive life advantage, or do I just not care all that much?
Because Matt is at 40. That's a really good point.
Yeah, it looks like we do have a crown activation here, so that will prevent 1 damage. Obviously, he'll kind of cycle his arsenal draw card, tossing on in the good old Ram's Head. So it's just blocking a little bit of damage here. The Herald isn't really threatening a ton, so he's going to be taking 4 damage. And it looks like we're going to follow up with a aura here. So this is our first aura of the game. We'll have to see how Matt deals with if he's going to focus on getting rid of these auras and focusing on popping these spectras.
Yeah, and I actually misspoke a little earlier. I said Phantasm. That's all the Wartune Heralds that they have.
Yeah.
Spectra is the ability that we're talking about here. So when you attack and Spectra triggers, the combat chain closes. Now, we did see a Starvo activation's turn, so this Crippling Crush will have go again. Traditionally, the way these turns are going to play out is whatever the attack is, this happens to be one of the best ones, whatever the attack is, this is going to go to the face. This is going to go at James at his hero. That's going to happen. All that's going to resolve and be done with. And then Matt's going to start what I like to call cleanup duty.
Right, exactly. Very likely with his hammer, right? Just bring it on in the hammer. This Crippling Crush is very scary. I mean, the on-hit effect is quite significant. Discarding 2 cards at random can be very, very backbreaking. And it looks like we do have just a 3-block coming on in here. It'll be interesting to see if James is considering tossing any of his equipment in, or if he just wants to, eat a good old Starvo platter.
Yeah, it does look like this is going to be an immovable as well.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, it matters this turn a lot what the arsenal was there. It was either going to be something like a defense reaction or an aura that could be played at instant speed.
Yeah.
Because Prism can actually operate a decent bit on the opponent's turn.
Oh, yeah.
And that can definitely mess up some of the timing of the attacks.
100%. And since that immovable was played from Arsenal, it does get that buff there. So it's, blocking for 8 plus the 3. So that's a pretty tidy little block there. As the Starvo player, you got to expect that kind of stuff, but it's always a little sad when you're like coming in with a big attack and they're like, nah, I got you.
I got you, yeah, exactly. And looks like Matt just arsenaled up and passed over, so Pierce Reality is going to stick around.
Yeah, I mean, as the Prism player, you do like to see your auras stick around. James had a pretty solid turn there, right? Like he was able to absorb all the damage and keep his aura.
Now, I was informed for everybody at home, James's life total is a little bit off, and it will be for the next few minutes, but we are going to have that fixed as soon as possible.
Yep. So we have another Starvo activation. Captain Planet is in full force here. That is a Pulse of Eisenloft and was that a Lightning Surge?
Yep, absolutely.
Starvo does have a card in Arsenal, so let's see how big of an attack Matt can follow this up with.
Lightning Surge actually does double duty in this kind of matchup. In a lot of the other matchups, it's just a card you're revealing to Starvo, pitching for some resources, but this is one of the matchups where you'll actually see Lightning Surge get in the red zone a decent bit, get in that attack area
yeah, for sure.
A decent bit, because of the fact that it has natural go again from the arsenal. It helps clear up auras. So if ever the board gets a little out of sync, there's a lot of too many auras for Matt to feel so comfortable.
Yeah.
You'll see him maybe try to arsenal something like that card and then be able to maybe even activate Starvo, pay for an attack with Starvo, attack with this, and maybe even attack with my hammer as well. Lots of attacks in one turn will kind of clear things up. In conjunction with time skippers as well can lead to really big turns.
Yeah, 100%. And here we have another Pulse. This is a good old Pulse of Candlehold. So Matt is going to take 2 cards and, showing that he's going to, these breakgrounds, we might see these a little bit later, sticking them back on top of the deck here. He still has that Starvo activation. So here we have just a cleanup, like you said, cleanup duty. Hammer coming in, cleaning on that Spectra.
And this is going to be the classic turn you're going to see from Starvo a lot of the games in this match. You're going to see big attack, no matter what it is, goes to face, especially if you have go again. and then the hammer is going to be on regulation duty. You know, it
Yes.
doesn't like having things sit around, so it does look like its Pierce reality is going to go down. But is that a parable of humility it's getting played?
That is a parable of humility. All of these auras, especially these instant speed auras, are absolutely fantastic. And this one just kind of like, you know, sticks around, just kind of a nuisance, generally neutering a lot of the Starvo attacks. And these are the kind of things you just want to build up, right? You just want to establish a board state here. It's a very unique play style here in Flesh and Blood, establishing kind of like a board state.
Exactly. Like the way that Prism generally wins this matchup and what it looks like what you're going to see if James were to win this game is most likely he's going to have something like 2 to 3 auras in play at a time and attacking a bunch of this. This is a big play here.
Yeah, Blink is a fantastic way to clean up these auras here. Getting an extra action point for basically nothing, allowing Matt to come in and clean that up. Yeah. It's fantastic.
It allows that lightning surge since it has that action point to lightning surge to clean up, and this is the number one thing Matt has to do in the game. Yes, pushing damage is great, getting these big attacks in the face, but if you can keep James from ever establishing that board state like we were talking about, that big, elaborate, wide board state, Prism is not going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Starvo.
Yeah.
The way it does it is, hey, I'm not attacking you for large amounts every turn. I'm attacking you. It's the death by 1,000 cuts, as we talked about. Attacking with a bunch of auras that are on the board and doing a bunch of stuff as well. Because Starvo doesn't really handle that when it gets to about 2, 3, 4 auras at a time. Doesn't handle that well.
And here we have a good old Spectral Shield here, card that will double as a defensive point and a little bit of offense here. We do see a Herald of Erudition getting pitched, which is a powerful card in its own right.
This is one of the heralds that I'm happy to swing with at any point in time in games. This is one of the ones you want to be attacking with if possible, but it does look like we're going to be trying to set up that board state, like you said. James understanding where his bread is buttered here. He wants to get to that point where he's in a better spot to win.
Yes, exactly. Haze Bending is... I don't want to call it annoying, but
it's annoying.
It is one of those cards where if you have it on the field, it's just kind of like you got to deal with it. Otherwise, it can really get out of hand here.
And speaking of dealing with it, Matt's going to do that right away, but he's going to leave behind one of those Spectral Shields. So a little 2-for-1 kind of action. Haze Bending is in play, gets to do something, and then it leaves something behind as well, and that's something that can get James back into this game.
Right. That hammer might as well be like a broom and like a dustpan. It's just
you always leave something behind. You never get all of it.
Dude.
Yeah, you never get all of it.
Yep, exactly. Looking at Matt's hand, is that does he still have that pulse?
Yeah, it does look like
I do see a pulse. So that looks like a well on his way to a Starvo activation from that hand. Let's see how this plays out. I mean, looking at the life totals, we have 35 to 18. That does look like a fair bit of difference, but you can never really count Prism out of here, right? You can always, gain the tempo back, build that board state up, and get back into the game, right?
Yeah.
It's never over.
Yeah, things can start to snowball pretty fast, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a great way to do so. Like, these auras are just, they can be very, very dominating here. And this one is an Ode to Wrath?
Yeah, that is definitely Ode to Wrath. Now, since there is a yellow stripped card in the pitch zone, Luminaris gives all of the auras go again.
Yes.
Turn. So this is, we've kind of alluded to this. We haven't had it happen yet this game. This is where James is going to start trying to get back in the game. This is how he's going to beat Starvo because they don't ever want to block this with a card from their hand because it's only technically attacking for 1, even though Ode does double up on some of this. Ode is the one that's definitely turns the aggression up to 10 in this matchup. And speaking of Spectral Shields, here we go. We got 3 more.
Here we go. So
this is a lot of damage.
Like you mentioned, all of these will have go again. So this is kind of like Kadachi's on Overdrive, right? This is just going to be a whole bunch of little pokes, and every time they poke, they're going to hurt, right? It's going to add up, and as you see here, Matt really can't. You can't really just block. You can't block them, basically, right? There's not good value to do so.
If you're blocking these, you're losing. That spells the beginning of the end. So what you're going to see here is you're going to see Matt really prioritize taking down this Ode to Wrath. That has to be priority number 1. Even if it takes, if he only has 1 attack this turn and it's attacking for 10, he's probably still attacking Ode to Wrath.
Yeah, if you're James in this situation, how much do you value all of these Spectral Shield tokens? Do you really want to block heavily to save them? Or do you want to maybe try to, progress your board in other ways?
So it's a real difficult dance, right? You want to make sure that you don't die, obviously, but
Right.
you also know this is how I win. And this comes to the classic spot. Brian and I were talking about this yesterday. A classic spot of playing to not to lose versus playing to win.
Yeah.
So in some situations, you have to take a risk, right? You have to take some extra damage or play in a little different way to make sure that your game plan is operated and that your game plan is the foremost of what you're trying to do. And you see James doing that here. He's trying to go as wide as possible, and it's giving Matt a pause.
Yeah.
Anytime you see Matt really take his time with some of his plays, it's because he's having to think a lot. Matt is one of the most quick players I've ever seen in this game. So whenever you give him pause, you know you're doing something right.
Yeah. And so this one is pumped up by Starvo, good old Starvo platter. So this Spinal Crush is coming in for 11 with Go Again.
The whole buffet.
Yep, exactly. And Dominate. And this is what Matt Rogers kind of needs at this point, right? To push in some, damage to clean up these Spectral Shield tokens.
Yeah, this is actually really big, too. This is the one that I alluded to earlier about taking away Go Again. Spinal Crush, if it hits, and the Crush triggers, which if it hits, it's probably going to be hitting for 4, unless James wants to give him his whole hand. Losing Go Again is very, very bad for James, because the way he's going to be winning is attacking a ton. So let's see what happens here.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a fantastic way to not only, like you said, get rid of that Go Again, clean up all of the Spectral Shield tokens. This is kind of like I don't call it a double whammy, but I mean, it kind of is. And if you're a Prism player, you are very sad to pick up all of your Spectral Shield tokens and set them off to the side, right?
This is an ideal turn for Matt Rogers. If you're a Matt Rogers fan at home, if you're rooting for him like so many people back in New Zealand are, this was the turn you wanted to see. A big attack that gets through a lot of damage, clears up the Spectral Shields, and takes that Ode to Wrath off the board. Everything James did over the last 2 or 3 turns, put it in the bin.
Yep, I mean, that's exactly what he needed. And that's exactly what you have to do against Prism to stay in the game. You have to just clean it up every single turn. You got to keep your play area tidy, right? Bravo's a very clean gentleman.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's on Matt, right? He's like, hey, look, I like it clean and tidy. James like, no, I want it messy.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
He's the 5-year-old who doesn't want to clean his room. He wants his toys strewn all over the place. He wants you ever been walking around in the middle of the night to get a glass of water and you step on that Lego and it's the worst pain ever?
Yeah.
That's what's happening. He wants the Legos everywhere and he wants Bravo to step on him. Bravo wants to get in there with that broom, sweep it all up, and make sure nothing's there.
Bravo, noted fan, or noted anti-fan, I guess, of Legos. Not a fan of Legos.
We all knew where you were going with it.
Exactly.
Noted Lego hater.
Yeah, exactly. Lego hater. Yeah. Just
I'm sorry, Lego fans at home. I'm really sorry.
For the record, I like Legos.
I do too.
Shout out to all the Lego fans watching today. We do have a Miraging Metamorph coming in. Absolutely fantastic card if you have some auras to duplicate here. So in this situation, it's just coming in for 7, but a 1 for 7. Not too bad.
Yeah, pretty good card. This is a card that's hard to deal with in a lot of spots. If there's ever an aura in play or if they're threatening to play one at instant speed, this card gets really, really difficult to deal with. But Matt's in a really good spot to deal with it here. He's got a high life total, and there's not an aura presenting itself or the chance of one presenting itself on the board. So it's easy, just take the 7.
And here we have a beautiful alt art channel Lake Frigid, one of my favorite cards, followed up with a Pulse into a 8 attack hammer, I believe. And, 8 attack hammer. That is also threatening a Frostbite token. So he's like, you know what, here's a bunch of damage. And also, would you like to be taxed next turn? Because I would like you to be taxed next turn.
Yeah, it's really good against decks that are trying to do multiple things in a turn or play things into speed. Channel Frigid is like, if you want to do something, you need to do it now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to cost you more. Matt and his team are some of the ones that I've seen the most getting the most out of their pulses. I see them playing their pulses more than anyone. This one gets played generally a little bit, a little more than the other ones because it does pump up the hammer so well. And when the life totals are this low, an 8-power hammer is nothing to sneeze at. That Frostbite plus Channeling Frigid is a lot to deal with. I
mean, honestly, myself as a Lexi player, I'm a little jealous. I'm a little jealous of these Starvos being able to use this Pulse of Volt Haven on their weapon. I would love to be able to use it on my bow. So, it's pretty good, And it is definitely giving James some pause here, right? It's something you really have to pay attention to and take into account, especially when you're at 12. We have a triple block coming in and, kind of thrown in the kitchen sink here.
Yeah, triple block. That Frostbite's still going to come across, though. So there's going to be a Channel Lake Frigid here and a Frostbite coming into James Silver's turn. This could not feel good.
I mean, James is just like, I guess I'm not going to have much of a turn. He does have a card in Arsenal, I believe. So card in Arsenal, card in hand. Does have 3 on Tunic. So I mean, there's some things that can happen here. We do have Herald of Erudition pitch to play a War Tune Herald. Technically, this has go again, but it won't matter all that much. That was a blue Herald.
I think we might be backing up here because of the Frostbite. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're discussing this here.
Yeah, it looks
So,
like.
so the Herald was from the Arsenal, right?
It seems very fixable.
Yeah.
If we catch this.
So
right away.
I think Matt's pointing out that Frostbite plus the channel makes it so that it's taxed twice, and the Herald only pitches for 2. So he doesn't have enough resources to actually play the War Tune from Arsenal. I think that's what
let the
is being
players
discussed
sort
here.
this out.
Yeah,
you
so
kind of see the body language a little bit in James too. Here, he's like, "Can you just kill me already?" He's like, "This game." Like, I'm not trying to say anything bad here about James. He's played well from the spot he's at. He's just what's he supposed to do?
I mean, we talked about it at the start of this, right? I mean, it's a high stress situation, right? You're at the Pro Tour here. You're 7-3. You're coming up against Matt Rogers playing Starvo.
And your deck's not giving you what you need.
Exactly, right. And Matt is still here. He's like, hey, you know what? I'm shifting into control mode. Would you like to discard a card or pay 1? And I'm going to follow that up with what is that, an Evergreen? Is that a red Evergreen coming in for 7, I believe, for the red?
I don't think there's any Starvo activation this turn.
Yeah.
But every piece of damage is really important now. James is down to 12. He's at a very low life total.
Yeah,
so all of your cards pushing any amount of damage is great.
Yep. It heavily incentivizes blocking, which is great for Matt, right? To maintain this tempo, forcing cards out of their hand, keeping this. Well, it doesn't look like this channel Lake Frigid is long for this world, but still, being able to keep all this pressure up is, what you want to do. So we have a double block, 2 pretty spicy cards, blocking with a Herald of Erudition and a Celestial Cataclysm. So, when you see your opponent blocking with great cards like that, you got to be pretty happy.
Look at Matt's going to Arsenal up and pass here. Going to have a big turn set up for next turn, but James just can't get anything going. You got to feel for him these games. Matt's hands have been very good. He's played really well. James' deck is just not cooperating with him. Yeah,
I mean, both players still have their full equipment suite, so we got to factor that into this. But like you said, yeah, James's deck is absolutely not cooperating. It's like a that toddler who left all the Lego pieces. Now he's not cooperating at all. Here we have a.
Just so you know, I was that toddler when I was a kid.
Oh yes.
I never wanted to clean anything up.
I definitely had some like ninja Legos, so I understand. I have Ophidia. I've seen a lot of play this weekend. Being able to pitch and opt 2, so he can kind of like smooth out his draws. This is a 6 War Tune Herald, just kind of coming on in.
Yeah, really nice inclusion that we've seen a ton this week. I think I've seen more Fables pitched this weekend than all the other callings that I've covered combined.
I think so as well, actually.
And it's pretty sweet, right? Like if you're using it to activate Crown of Seeds, you get to opt and then draw the card.
That's true.
And this sets up your Starvo just a little bit more. There is some now. It's not just free. There is something to be said about there. There's an opportunity cost here. This is a card in your deck that doesn't actually contribute to Starvo.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? Doesn't attack and doesn't block.
Exactly, yeah.
So
there's a very real cost, yeah, like you said. But it also, at the same time, is a spicy meatball, as I would say. So Matt here, kind of in the tank.
I need to get my hands on one. I don't actually have an Eye of Ophidia, so I need to get one for my Starvo deck at home.
Yes. It is literally the only card I don't own in this game, and watching all these is making me very envious.
That list is way too long for me to list. We'd have to be here all day.
Right. So it looks like Matt is going to opt with blocking with his Rampart of the Ram's Head at the very least. Or maybe just the Rampart of the Ram's Head, looking like. So he motions that he's going to end up taking 5 from this, I believe.
With that gorgeous Ram's Head that he's got, all these graded cards from his business, just unbelievably beautiful stuff. We get it, Matt. Your cards are great.
Yes, I do.
Your cards are gorgeous.
I mean, Flesh and Blood cards are gorgeous just in general, so.
Oh, absolutely.
Coming in with a slab. So I believe we've seen this one a couple times here. Like you said before, this is a great card for not just applying pressure, but also that really, really powerful crush effect. This is the one that if it does 4 more damage, your opponent loses go again, basically, for the whole turn, the Spinal Crush.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was pretty good in this matchup, the fact that, again, if they're ever going wide or if they're not going to have go again, so they can't do that. Could be good in, say, Briar matchups.
Yes.
Like Runeblade in general. Runeblade's known for going again.
Yes, I hate playing against Spinal Crush because I like to play Lexi, and if I see the Spinal Crush, I'm like, well, I can't really block very well, and maybe I'm not going to be attacking very well either. And that's what the card does.
Yeah, it's good against the Hero Chain as well. Just a really good card to have in your deck list for this weekend and for this meta. It's pretty good against a lot of the top decks. The fact that, again, it can just push a lot of generic damage, right? 9 for 5 isn't the best rate, but it's a lot. If you activate Starvo, 11 Dominate that's where it really sinks in.
Yeah.
If you ever have it for Dominate, you're just pushing huge amounts of damage, because at that point you don't care what the damage is if it has Dominate, because you're going to be getting through some large amount.
Yeah, technically lethal, even though James has a good suite of equipment still here. So we have a double block. So it's going to block 6, so he'll end up taking 3, avoiding that crush very narrowly. Matt's going to Arsenal up and just go ahead and pass.
Still get that full equipment suite, too, if he ever wants to use the turn where, like, James... I think we're going to start using the equipment whenever he needs to pivot as much as possible. Yeah. He's looking for a hand that can get him there. A hand that, I can start to develop, maybe start to get some more attacks. This is a big attack as well, and Matt's life total is getting a little low. Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty good way to gain a little bit of an advantage, but Matt's like, okay, let's just start off with good old Crown of Seas, right? Speaking of Dominate, this Herald of Air Edition also has Dominate as well. Yeah. Dominate, and it also has the best card, or the best words in any card game. Draw cards. Draw a card. Draw multiple cards is even better than draw a card. It's so nice. We did it twice. Yep, exactly. And so it looks like we're going to use some of that equipment that we talked about here. So we have a 2-block, and then I think this is another 2-block. Yeah, with the Crown of Activation, the Crown of Seeds activation as well. Yep, so that's blocking it all out, a full block, and, they just don't want your opponent to draw cards, right? Right, and that would slow down Matt a little bit, but it does look like he still has a activation Starvo here, because there was an Arsenal up for James. We're going back over to Matt. This looks like this is going to be backbreaking. Well, yeah, this is going to hurt. this is probably going to hurt, right? So this is a Starvo activated Oaken Old, and this is what double? What do we call this? Double fuse? This is supersized Oaken Old. Exactly. You want that double cheeseburger, fries, and a drink? Here you go. The oldest oak. That's what this is. And James is like, well, I can block with this one card from hand. We did see him pitch a Soul Shield last turn, so that's one less defense reaction he has at his disposal. That's a really good point. I think this is why you've seen him be so remiss about using his equipment to block as well, because of a situation like this. He knows that dominated attacks are coming, and he needs to be able to block as much as possible. So you're looking at possibly blocking 3 from hand, 2 from the skull cap, 2 from his arms, and possibly a little bit from the legs as well. And is that enough to keep him through the game? Because the problem is, even if it's the hero, you're still losing a bunch of cards from your hand as well. So if there's no defensive reaction here, he might not be dead this turn, right? But I don't know if he's coming back from this turn. I mean, Oaken Old is such a house, right? I mean, Crippling Crush is great. It has that nice crush effect, but Oaken Old is like, well, you can have your crush effects, but if I hit you at least once, like 1 point of damage, it's going to rip some cards out of your hand. This is the premier attack in the game right now. Yeah. Yeah, and it's... we do have the defensive reaction. This is huge for James. Maybe this is the turn where he starts to pivot a little bit. Yeah, so it looks like this is a red unmovable from hand, so it won't get that extra little pump, but it's still, blocking for 7, plus the 2 from the Arcanite Skull Cap. This is 9 block. And then an instant speed play from his arsenal here, so he's not going to lose these cards. Right. So, yes, he's basically maximizing his hand here. Being able to play 3 Spectral Shield tokens here with that Prismatic Shield. So this is what, 7, 8, 9. So he's going to end up with, well, okay, now we have a hammer coming in. So he's going to end up with more or less no Spectral Shield tokens at the end of this. Yeah, he's still got this armor that he can use possibly as well. Definitely considering that. He does have 1 resource floating, right? Yes. So these Iron Hides are online. Does look like he's going to line up a block with this. And it was, let's say, 2 with the Spectral Shield. So he's going to be left over with 1. At least he gets something left over from this turn. It's better than nothing, obviously. So he's at least making some headway. Matt down to 13. Kind of clawing his way in, like every inch. A Lego has been put onto the field. Yeah, exactly. Don't step on it. You got to avoid it. Matt's like, all right, how do I navigate this Lego? That's what he's thinking right now. He's like, I got this Lego on the field. How do I navigate this? And as Matt here, you're looking at your opponent. They got 1 Spectral Shield. They're at 4. You got to be thinking like, okay,
what's my path to close out this game?
I'm going for the throat. I'm looking for the biggest attack I can possibly find. If it's dominated, great. If not, I just want to push as much damage as possible. I want to put them in a situation where they're in a no-win spot. They just have to give me all of their cards every turn.
Yeah, exactly. And once you can, get on that side of things, I mean, if you're a player who plays a lot of Flesh and Blood, once you can get on that side of things, it feels really nice. And you're just like, I just got to keep it up. It's like, the little engine that could. Just keep chugging, just keep chugging. Here we have a good old Evergreen. I believe, did Flake call it a Wintergreen last turn? Very minty, fresh card.
I can see it. I mean, look at that art. A, the art's amazing. B, I can see
beautiful.
that.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. So just the 7.
I'm not a big fan of mints, but I am a fan of Evergreen. So
okay, I mean, I'm also a fan of Evergreen. I play this card in Limited, and it's doing a lot of work in Starvo these days, I gotta say. And so James here is like, well, it's the time. How much do I block with?
We've talked a lot about children stuff today, the Legos and all the other references we made.
Yep.
This looks like this should be the star of one of those animated children movies. It should be talking to you and leading the other animals to safety. And it's going to be leading Matt Rogers to a victory, hopefully, this round for him.
This totally reminds me of the forest spirit from Princess Mononoke. Shout out to all.
You're going over my head here.
All Studio Ghibli fans out there. There's got to be some in the
there's
chat.
A lot of those.
Yes.
I know of it.
yeah.
Is this a Phantasmoclasm?
No, this is Miraging Metamorph.
Okay.
Coming in for 7, threatening to duplicate. He has one aura on board at least. So we have a Crown of Seeds activation here. Will prevent good old little damage here. Man, Crown of Seeds is such a workhorse. It puts in so much work.
Does look like Matt might actually be thinking about popping this Miraging Metamorph here. Probably thinking, hey, look, I don't want to take this damage and go down to precarious life total. I'm okay with you having another Spectral Shield. Also, there's not a yellow card in the pitch zone yet, so.
So it looks like we're gonna.
Oh, we're gonna gain the action point back here, though.
Yep. So that's a Phantasmal Footsteps activation. I believe that's the first activation this game. We do still have the trigger from Miraging Metamorph, so we have the copy effect. This card. So we have a pitch. Oh, so this is a Prism activation into another, and then he's just attacking with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, just remove the card from Soul to make the third Spectral Shield, so the third Lego in play here. So the floor is getting a little messy.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing a decent job of creating these.
But that ground's about to break, that's all I'm saying.
Breaking more ground. The ground is very unstable when you're playing against Bravo. I mean, once again, just another 7. I mean, a lot of these is just you're kind of just biding your time until you can do these big whammy turns, right? These turns where you can Crippling Crush and Oak and Old and
absolutely.
do your Starvo activations. And still applying pressure like this is, what makes Starvo very, very strong.
Yeah, and this is kind of ideal for Matt in the way this game's played out. He had a lot of the big attacks early that have the cool on hit effects. Yeah. So the threat's there, right? You're at 40, you can't just tank 7, you can't just tank 10, you can't tank 12 because the on hits are so powerful. Now that the generic damage is happening, Matt's completely okay with it because the life total is so low that every point matters so much.
Oh, yes. Especially when you're at 4. 7 is pretty brutal, right? Because that means, regardless, all the Spectral Shield tokens aside, if you block with a single card that blocks for 3, that's still dealing 4 damage to you. Right now, that's just going to clean up a bunch of Spectral Shield tokens, which is great for Matt.
James Silver kind of clawing his way back in here. He's got that one Spectral Shield left over.
Yeah, got one Spectral Shield. It's more than none. Poking in for a little 1 damage. And that's about all he can do here.
Yeah, Matt taking a look, seeing if he wants to do anything here for that 1 damage, but generally cards don't line up super well in these spots for that.
Yeah, and Matt James's equipment here also is looking a little worse for wear, right? He hasn't tossed in that tunic yet, but his equipment's seen better days. And Matt is deciding what he wants to do here. I would guess, yeah, here we go. So we have a Crown of Seeds activation here. And that's going to be doing that basically in response to this Spectral Shield coming in.
Yep, so defend that. Now, Crown of Seeds, again, so one of the easiest and best ways to deal with 1 damage from a Spectre Shield, because like we said, we don't want to get, and this might be the game right here. We have a Starvo activation.
This is one of those turns that Matt was waiting for, right? Just kind of biding his time until he can just smash on in.
Oh, and it's an Okadol, so this is going to be for 11. I don't know if James is double fuse. I don't know if James has enough to get through this.
Yeah, this is scary, right? This is very scary.
He needs a defensive reaction to even have a shot here, I believe.
Yes. And so he's like, okay, I got this 1 card I can block with here. This is how I play a little bit too, right? I'm putting the card down, right? You know, kind of compartmentalizing your plays. I got to block it.
I need the physical representation sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, okay, I got this card in Arsenal. We see a couple more cards. I believe he's considering pitching. So yeah, he does have an instant in his hand that he can't block with. We're going to be blocking with these footsteps, which unfortunately will not survive this attack.
Same could be said about the Tunic as well.
So yeah, this is like thrown in the kitchen sink, right? This is like a very pivotal turn where James is like, I guess I just got to yeet everything. just toss it all in as much as he can. So, all right. Like, that's not nothing, right? So we have 3 block from the Celestial, another 3. Yeah, here we have Matt counting it up, right? So we have 3, 3, and 3. Is this blocking 9? What color is that prismatic shield?
Yeah, I think it got through the 2. The 2 cards went to the bottom, and that's going to follow up with an Evergreen
that's game.
Is not blockable because there's no equipment left, there's no cards left, and that's going to be the game. James Silver's going to fall to 7-4. Matt Rogers is going to move up to 8-3, keeping that dream alive for that top 8 berth.
Yep, Starvo. Turns out Starvo is good and still good, and a very fabulous and scary hero to play against.